Look around you. Whether it's your dog at your feet, a cat on the couch, or the milk in your fridge, almost everything connected to animals has been shaped by us. Over thousands of years, humans have taken wild creatures and carefully turned them into what we wanted: companions, workers, food sources, or pets. Through domestication and selective breeding, we've changed how they look, behave, and even how they think. Some of these changes are subtle. Others are so extreme that the animals barely resemble their wild ancestors. Today, we're looking at 10 animals that have been completely transformed by human hands. Let's start with the one that's been by our side the longest. 1. Dog. Every dog on Earth, from the Chihuahua to the Great Dane, traces back to one ancestor, the gray wolf. At first glance, that's hard to believe. Wolves are powerful hunters, built for survival in packs. Dogs, on the other hand, come in every shape imaginable: tiny, fluffy, hairless, long-nosed, short-legged, and everything in between. The story began over 15,000 years ago when wolves started scavenging near human camps. The friendlier ones got leftovers. The more aggressive ones were driven away. Over time, people started favoring those tamer wolves, the ones that barked as warnings or stayed close without fear. Those early wolves became the first domesticated dogs. Since then, humans have bred dogs for every purpose: herding, guarding, hunting, guiding, or simply keeping company. Selective breeding exaggerated certain traits: long fur for cold climates, short legs for burrowing, strong jaws for protection. Today, dogs are so genetically diverse that some breeds can barely interbreed naturally. We have taken a single species and reshaped it into over 400 distinct forms, something no other animal has experienced in quite the same way. 2. Cats followed a different path. They weren't tamed through force. They chose to stay. Modern domestic cats descend from the African wildcat. Physically, they're still remarkably similar. The real change has been in behavior. Wildcats are solitary and cautious. Domestic cats, while still independent, have learned to live comfortably around people. Thousands of years ago, humans noticed cats hanging around grain stores, attracted by the mice and rats that came with the food supply. Farmers tolerated them. Cats benefited from easy prey. Over generations, cats that were less fearful and more tolerant of humans thrived. Unlike dogs, cats were never fully bred for obedience or work. We shaped them gently, more by environment than by strict selection. Even now, they still carry many wild traits: stealth, territorial behavior, and strong hunting instincts. So while cats are technically domesticated, they still walk a fine line between wild and tame, one of the reasons they fascinate us so much. 3. Cattle. The cattle we see on farms today are distant relatives of the aurochs, a wild species of massive horned cattle that once roamed Europe, Asia, and North Africa. Aurochs stood nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder, aggressive, strong, and fast. Not something you'd want to chase into a pen. Early humans managed to domesticate them around 10,000 years ago. Through selective breeding, they favored animals that were calmer, easier to manage, and better suited for living around people. Over time, we split them into specialized breeds, some for milk, others for meat, and some for labor. The result is striking. Modern cattle are larger in body but far less muscular and aggressive than their wild ancestors. Their instincts for survival have dulled, replaced by traits that serve human needs. In many ways, the cow is a symbol of domestication itself, an animal built almost entirely around human demand. 4. Horse. Wild horses once ran freely across the open plains. They were smaller, tougher, and far less cooperative. But somewhere on the steppes of Central Asia, humans saw their potential, not as prey, but as partners. Domestication of the horse changed human history. It gave us speed, transport, warfare, and power. Over generations, people bred horses for strength, endurance, and temperament. The result is the incredible diversity we see today. Massive draft horses pulling heavy loads, sleek race horses bred for speed, and smaller agile breeds for riding and sport. Domesticated horses are calmer and more trainable than their wild relatives. They've learned to respond to human cues, accept commands, and work alongside people, something wild horses would never tolerate. From transportation to culture, few animals have shaped our world as profoundly as the horse. 5. Pig. The domestic pig comes from the wild boar, an animal still found across Europe and Asia. Wild boars are muscular, covered in coarse hair, and armed with sharp tusks. They're clever and fiercely territorial. When humans began domesticating them, they selected the less aggressive individuals, the ones easier to handle and faster to grow. Over time, pigs became rounder, hairless, and much more docile. Their meat grew fattier and more tender. But here is an interesting twist. If domesticated pigs escape and live in the wild for a few generations, they can start to regain their old traits. Their hair grows back, their snouts elongate, and their behavior becomes wilder. It's a reminder that domestication is reversible. Evolution never really stops. 6. Chicken. Before the chicken became the world's most common bird, it was the red jungle fowl, a small, lean, colorful bird from South and Southeast Asia. Those wild birds could fly short distances, fought fiercely, and were raised mostly for their feathers or in cockfighting. Humans began breeding them for size, egg production, and calmness. Over centuries, this created a bird that grows rapidly, lays hundreds of eggs a year, and rarely shows aggression. Today, meat and egg chickens are so far removed from their ancestors that many can't even fly or survive long in the wild. Their bodies grow faster than their bones can handle, a direct result of human-driven selection for productivity. It's one of the clearest examples of how breeding can reshape not just appearance, but biology itself. 7. Sheep were among the first animals domesticated by humans. Their ancestors were wild mouflons from the Middle East, tough, agile animals built for rocky terrain. Early shepherds began selecting those with softer wool and calmer temperaments. Over thousands of years, this transformed the mouflon into the modern sheep, woolly, mild, and heavily dependent on human care. Most domestic sheep can no longer shed their wool naturally. If left unshorn, their fleece keeps growing, trapping heat and dirt. They've traded self-sufficiency for comfort and abundance, a perfect example of domestication as double edge. What began as a wild mountain survivor is now one of the gentlest and most human-dependent animals on Earth. 8. Goat. The domestic goat story runs parallel to the sheep's, but with a twist. Goats were domesticated from the wild Bezoar ibex about 10,000 years ago, likely in the mountains of Iran and Turkey. They were valued for their milk, meat, and ability to survive where few other animals could. Humans bred them for smaller size, more milk, and calmer behavior. Yet goats have kept much of their original independence. They're curious, stubborn, and still skilled climbers. Unlike sheep, goats can live semi-wild, forage freely, and even escape captivity with ease. Domestication made them more manageable, but not entirely tame, which might explain their mischievous reputation. 9. Rabbit. Rabbits were domesticated much later than most livestock, around the Middle Ages in Europe. Monks in France began keeping wild European rabbits for food, especially during Lent, when meat was forbidden. Over time, they bred them for size, color, and temperament. From those early efforts came dozens of domestic breeds, from tiny dwarf rabbits to giant Flemish ones. They lost their strong fear response and became gentler, more tolerant of handling, and dependent on human care. Wild rabbits are uniform in color, usually gray-brown for camouflage. Domestic rabbits come in every color and fur type imaginable, purely due to human preference. Their transformation shows how quickly domestication can change an animal when the environment and purpose are completely controlled. 10. Guinea pig. The guinea pig might seem like a modern pet, but its history goes way back. It was first domesticated in South America over 3,000 years ago, not as a pet but as a food source. Wild guinea pigs were small, alert rodents that lived in burrows. People bred them to be larger, calmer, and more social. Over time, they became a stable food animal, and later spread across the world as gentle, affectionate companions. Their transformation from a wild rodent to a household pet is a perfect example of how human intent can completely redefine a species' place in the world. Domestication isn't just about taming animals. It asks about changing them at the genetic level, often to the point where they could never survive on their own again. Each animal we've domesticated reflects a piece of our history: survival, partnership, comfort, and control. We made them softer, calmer, and more useful, but we also made them dependent on us. It's a powerful reminder that human influence reaches far beyond cities and technology. It extends into the DNA of the creatures that live beside us, and in a way, they've shaped us too, teaching patience, cooperation, and responsibility over generations. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more videos that uncover the hidden history behind everyday things. Which of these animals surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments, and stay tuned. Thanks for watching.